Welcome to the channel. As you can probably tell from the manufacturer's name on the box, we have a new arrival here today in this comically huge box that I can't even get in the frame if I zoom my camera all the way out. So, given the manufacturer here, Lenovo, you probably know what this is. This is an unboxing and first impressions video of a Lenovo Legion Go. Why a Legion Go? Well, these handhelds have been deeply discounted recently, and I'm interested in seeing what a large screen gaming handheld can do for me, because I'm not getting any younger and I want to see that big screen in action. So let's get this box open. So I got my handy dandy knife here. I wonder if there's another box inside this box, but right now it looks almost like I'm opening up a ThinkPad. So I may have to pause and refocus the camera. Mine's an old manual focus. But try to get into this box here. There we go. Oh, there is another box in here. So maybe I can zoom the camera back out. So inside the big Lenovo shipping box is maybe something we can actually fit into the frame. Come on. Oh, here we go. It's still huge. I think that outer shipping box was bigger than the box my last laptop came in. But we have a little bit smaller box. Just for reference, how big are we looking at right now? Well, here's a Steam Deck. So, box is still pretty huge. Now let's see if we can get in here. Okay. Legion Go, Windows 11. Oh, here's the seal. So we will break that seal and see if we can get inside. Here's the device. Oh, good. It comes with a case. They learned from Valve. A lot of the other handheld manufacturers don't bother to supply a case, and you have to go finding a case from somewhere else. I'm actually pleased with this. I did not actually know this in advance, that it does actually come with a case. So, bravo, Lenovo. So, little graphics on here telling me, I guess, what I'm supposed to do. I will probably end up doing this most of the time. I'm not the biggest fan of detachable controllers. I had kind of a bad experience with them on my Switch, as in they keep breaking. So controllers are probably going to stay on. But let's get this thing out of here. So inside the box we have the handheld, presumably in a case. This is probably a power supply, but I'll take a look. Yep, power supply. I think that's everything that's in here. I don't see anything else, unless they've hidden it. Oh, it's got some paper around it. Somehow this paper comes off. Maybe it wasn't that way. 65-watt power supply. Looks like I could probably also power my ThinkPad with it, which is fine. Set it aside. I think most everything else is in here, so let's move this box out of the way and take a good look at the device itself. power supply. And I'm putting the original box aside so I don't trip over it. Nice package so far. Of course, remember this was a pretty premium device. Oh, that's... I wonder what that's for. I wonder if you can charge through there. So we've got the device itself. Really trying to promote Legion space. Whether I use it or not, we'll see. Here's the device. Oh, I'm guessing this is the stand for using one of the controllers like a mouse. Oh yeah, this lines up, this right here, this little flap, lines up apparently with the USB port here. Let's get this out of the bag. So here's the device. There's a USB port on the bottom that this port here in the case lines up with. So presumably this is for charging the device while it's in the case, which is a nice touch. On my Steam Deck, I have to have the case open if I want to charge it. So we've got buttons here, detachable controllers. We have a kickstand. This is actually reminds me a lot of the kickstand on, I have a ThinkPad X1 tablet. Reminds me a whole lot of that kickstand. Looks like it's nice and well built, unlike the one on the Switch. And on the other handhelds, they're basically non-existent, but that's convenient. So if you want to use the screen for media, or if you want to just play with an external controller, you can kind of set this up like a monitor. Looking pretty good so far. So this is not a small device by any stretch of the imagination. Let me pause for a second and make sure we're all in focus, since that box was huge. Yeah, we're looking pretty good here. So power supply off to the side. So this thing is a foot wide and about, not quite, about 5 1/4 inches tall. Pretty thick. So the controllers, count the joysticks, getting close to 2 inches here. But really nice big screen here so far. We'll take this off of the little trackpad. And let's look at little size comparisons. So, obvious competitor to the Legion Go is the Steam Deck, and maybe surprisingly, the two are pretty much the same width. So, in terms of size compared to the deck, the Legion Go might be a little thicker. Although if you look at it with the controls, yeah, there's a little bit thicker here. The body is certainly thicker. But surprisingly, the width is about the same. And the height, well, let's see. Let's line them up good. So the Go is about a 1/2 inch taller than the Steam Deck. For some other comparisons, we have another competitor handheld, the Intel one, the Claw. Claw is not quite as wide as Steam Deck is, so Claw definitely looks a little smaller than the Legion Go. In terms of thickness, yeah, just like the Steam Deck, Claw's not quite as thick if you look at the controllers. Although if you just look at the body of the device, they're about the same. And of the PC devices, of course, we have the Ally here. Ally, like the Claw, is a little bit smaller, a little bit more smaller. This is the Z1 Ally, not the Z1 Extreme, so performance, I'm sure the Go is going to be a significant amount better, but they're the same. The Extreme one and the non-Extreme are the same size, so it's good for size comparison. So you can see the buttons actually are a little bit bigger on the Ally. The screen, of course, is smaller. The old device is a little bit smaller, not quite as wide, but similar in thickness for the body and not as thick when you count the controllers. But the Go is actually pretty chunky unless you're comparing it to the Steam Deck. Steam Deck is one of the chunkier of the Intel, not Intel, but x86, I guess, based handhelds. I guess only the Claw is the Intel. So a little bit of an unfair comparison. Here's the Odin 2 Mini, which you can fit inside the screen of the Legion Go. Heck, I think the regular Odin 2 can just about fit in the screen of the Legion Go. So the screen of the Go is definitely huge. Hopefully that translates into good gameplay experience. Now, what does this thing have on it? So just looking around the device, we have the D-pad. It just feels like a typical kind of clicky PC D-pad here. We've got, I'm guessing, home and a button to bring up the quick menu. Looks like there's a light sensor in there. So I'm guessing this one will do auto brightness. Clickable sticks, the usual A, B, X, Y buttons. A little smaller than on the Ally. Feels pretty good in the hand. The back of the controls here are kind of grippy. So triggers are okay. Buttons seem okay. Don't know what this trackpad's going to do. Maybe it'll do something. And what else do we have? We have a USB port on the bottom and another USB port on the top. Thank you, Lenovo, for actually realizing we might want to have more than one device hooked up. Volume controls. I'm guessing here's the fan output. Power button. Looks like a headphone jack. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like the power button has any kind of biometrics, so I'm guessing we will have to do the passkey thing on this device, which is a little inconvenient compared to using the fingerprint sensor that's available on both the Ally, the ROG Ally, and the Claw. So, little disappointment there. Okay, I'm guessing this is for using this thing as a mouse. I'm guessing that's what that does, because here's what looks like a mouse sensor. Looks like mouse wheel. I'm guessing some of these end up being mouse buttons. Yeah, there's some on the side, which is kind of strange, but they're setting this up so you can kind of Nintendo Switch-like. Now, whether I'll actually ever use that or not, I tend to like to just have my handhelds in one piece. Anything else on here of note? Not really, just some stickers and whatnot. And again, there is a kickstand, which I actually am probably going to make a lot of use of, particularly if I pair up an external controller with this thing. So this is just an initial look around Legion Go. Of course, what I'm going to have to do here is probably do an initial Windows setup, maybe charge the thing. I haven't checked to see if it has any charge in it. So given that nobody wants to watch an initial Windows setup, so we'll pause the video here. We'll come back later after Windows is installed. I'll download Steam, put on a couple of games to test with, and I'm not going to try to do any major optimizations. So let's see, we're going to see what the out-of-the-box experience is like with the Legion Go. So I'm going to just go through the windows, do any software updates that are available, put on Steam, throw on some games, maybe also some emulators. So one thing I'm looking for here, do we have a micro SD slot? Oh, wait a minute. That must be it right there. It'd be kind of a bummer if it didn't have that. So we will get the basic setup done, and then we will come back and we will see, at least initially without doing too much fiddling, how well this thing performs compared to some of the competition. So I have updated Windows and downloaded some games here and did basic driver updates. So basically letting Legion Space, which is the interface here, and Windows download whatever updates they wanted to have. In addition to downloading the games, that actually took a while, so this is a little while after the initial unboxing video. But this is Legion Space, which is Lenovo's little interface, sort of like Armory Crate on the ROG Ally, and just basically like the Steam interface on the Steam Deck, or whatever they call the one on the Claw. It's like Center M or something like that. But this is the game launching interface, and we'll take a look at it real quick. One thing I don't like is that it defaults to coming up with the store. I would rather it default coming up to the game library, which makes some sort of sense. I mean, it's like Lenovo is trying to sell you something every time you turn the device on. Luckily, you don't actually have to have this come up every time you boot. You can disable that and just boot up to Windows. But if you want to use the interface here to launch games, it's here. So it puts your games and platforms into just this little area here. So you can see I've installed a few games, and we will try out a couple of them in just a bit. But essentially, you can launch games from here. You can configure controllers. This is where you do controller firmware updates, and you can control things like the lights and various things here. There's gyro settings, trigger settings, and so forth, if you want to mess with that sort of thing. I have not taken the controllers off, and I probably won't do that in this video because that's a whole other can of worms there. But this is where you do all your controller stuff. In settings, you can do driver updates. You can mess around with the display and all that. You can also do this in a quick menu where it makes more sense, but you can actually check your drivers here. So it's like, oh, do I want to see if there's any updates for things like the video drivers and stuff like that. Now, some people sideload what they call drivers from AMD rather than using the ones provided by Lenovo. I have not done any of that here yet. So the performance you'll see in the game testing will be these driver versions right here. So mainly, the current BIOS from when the where's the video driver? Or the AMD graphics driver. So here's the graphics driver version right here. But that's probably the important thing. Like I said, there are newer versions available, I believe, from AMD, but that's something you would have to load manually, kind of writing over this. But hadn't done that yet. May do that later, but not for this video. And we'll see. Maybe the performance is fine. You don't need to mess with constantly downloading the new drivers from AMD's website. But This is essentially what the interface looks like. Now, again, I think my qualm with this is it goes right to the store. Okay, hey, it doesn't even go to my, or whatever that is. It just goes right to the store. Come on, just go to the library. I don't see anything. Maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see anything in the options that lets you pick what screen you would like to default to. So, a little annoying here. In terms of what you can do, now, usually you probably don't use this for anything but maybe launching a game, or maybe not at all if you are not updating the controller's firmware or looking for system updates. But you press this button, you can get to Legion space or get out of it. Press this button over here. It is the quick menu, which is probably where you're going to do any kind of performance tuning. So there's a performance tab where you can select performance or power saving, or these two custom ones here. This custom one is roughly equivalent to like balanced mode on something like the MSI Claw. So trying to save a little battery, not run the fan so much. And then there's a custom 2 over here, which by default is set to the highest performance mode that you might use when you're plugged in. Running in this mode, the fan's going to run a lot, but this is the kind of ultimate performance mode here. So usually I'm not going to leave it over there. I've just had it in performance mode for a while, so I'll keep it there. You can also adjust the screen resolution and brightness and audio volume and so forth. You can use Radeon Super Resolution, but here are the resolution options. This is more akin to the Steam Deck's resolution here, 1280 by 800. Here's basically your 1080p option, which is 1920 by 1200, because this is a 16 by 10 screen rather than a 16 by 9. And of course, the native resolution of the device, 2560 by 1600. And you can control the resolution on the fly here. Also, the refresh rate. This device, as far as I can tell, does not have variable refresh rate, so no VRR tricks. You can select 60 Hz or 144. I think this is probably due to where they got the panel from. I believe this is a kind of a tablet panel, so we don't get any VRR here. You can set a frame rate monitor. It's not going to show me anything because it's just Windows there. And this is the usual options here. None of these that are vendor provided. I think the Steam Deck probably has the best one. Kind of gets out of your way and still shows you the same information. But you can monitor various things here, like how much memory has been used, how much of the video memory has been used, and various things like that. If you want to try to tweak your performance, then there's some stuff over here where you can actually look at performance while you're running a game. So of course in Windows, you can basically just turn it off. Not a whole much more to do here. There are some controller settings here. You can have various vibration settings. I've just left it kind of on the defaults here. I haven't really messed much with the lighting effects. Usually I end up doing this, but just turning them off. But there are various lighting things you can do. You can have variable colors. You can have fade in, fade out, or just basic light. But you can configure these more in Legion space. There's some tools here if you want to get to Task Manager to kill a task or something like that. So you've got some various things here you can do. There is stuff for external displays, and then there's help here. But most of the time, you're probably going to be here or here if you're adjusting anything, because here's where the most of the common settings are. So your performance settings, your screen resolution settings. So that's basically a tour of kind of what comes with it. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to actually play a few games here, and then we'll be back to kind of give some final thoughts on the device. So here we are going to play a little bit of Borderlands 3 on the Legion Go. See how it works. First off, there is a little thing here. I have my capture card plugged in here to the USB-C, and I normally try to do this with the headphone jack, but the headphone jack on the Legion Go and the one on my capture card don't really want to talk to each other without interference. But so, sounds fine with my headphones, but the moment I plug in the capture card, I get some noise. So this might be my capture card's fault. But so instead, I'm just going with the USB video output, which means the Legion Go right now also thinks it's driving a second monitor. And I don't know if that might impact the performance just a little bit. Might get a little bit less performance than we might get otherwise, but just figured I'd throw that out there. Right now we're using the Legion Go's performance mode, and we have things set to 1920 by 1200, which isn't the full resolution of the screen, but it's at least as good a resolution as you would get on something like the MSI Claw, which I also have, or the Ally. So let's take a look at how Borderlands is going to do here. We'll do a quick little run through the cartels and see what sort of performance we get. All right. How I'd hold this while playing the game. It's a little hard for me to see what's going on, but we should be able to get a good idea of performance anyway.
bounty! No! You sure? I'm bullets for you. Everybody gets bullets.
One thing I'll say here is that there seems to be a little less of the stuttering that I saw in Claw with this same game. Not so much for the boss. Check out some more of this loot later. But so far so good with Borderlands running on this thing. Not sure what the battery life's going to be yet, but the larger screen's really nice for this game. And so far it seems to run pretty well. Definitely better than on the Claw, at least with the I got some stuttering on the Claw that I was never able to quite get rid of. And certainly better than, it's definitely for frame rate, than what you get on the Steam Deck. So here's Borderlands 3. So now we're going to take a look at PlayStation 2 emulation on the Legion Go. So those of you who have watched a few videos on my channel demonstrating various handheld devices probably knew where this was going at some point and were wondering where it was, but we're going to take a look at Star Ocean till the end of time. Which you probably figure that on a device like this is probably going to run fairly well. So let's see if I've got a save game. Oh, here we go. So we'll look at the usual place here. I haven't really done anything with the default settings other than I think set it to 3 times native resolution. But other than that, this is pretty well out of the box PCSX2. The nightly version here, I may revert back to stable because it wants to update itself every day. But this is the nightly from the website. We'll do a little combat just to see how everything goes here. Again, we don't really expect much trouble with this game, except for sometimes I notice that the first battle load that you play in the entire game will sometimes stutter a little bit. Let's see if it does that here.
You don't really want to mess with
Yeah, see that. I do still have this on performance mode from the playing Borderlands 3, but that's probably overkill for playing PlayStation 2 games, but
You don't really want to mess with us. I won't.
sometimes in this menu right here, you get slowdown on a lot of the Android emulation handhelds, unless you mess around with some settings. Don't think it's a problem here because performance mode on a Ryzen Z1 Extreme is probably overkill for running this game. Around a little bit in the environment, see how it goes. No problems here.
Dirty trick.
Okay, bad situation. Yeah! Psychic! Psychic! Lord Baha! That was fun.
So that'll be good enough for now, I think. So we can see that the Legion Go has no problems running Star Ocean till the end of time, as we kind of expect. And it looks beautiful. I mean, it looks great on this screen. So, you know, if you're interested in making PlayStation 2 games look really good, I think other than the OLED deck, maybe, this is probably your best option. So this was Star Ocean till the end of time on the Legion Go. So let's take a look at Cyberpunk on the Legion Go. For comparison purposes, I've done a couple of things here. We have set the video to 1280 by 800 so you can compare the performance here to the performance of the Claw and the Steam Deck, which are running in my other test videos at about the same resolution. Other things, I have gone into the BIOS and I've set the VRAM for the Legion Go to 6 gigabytes, because if you leave it at the default 3, the performance on Cyberpunk, frankly, is horrible. And you can probably stand, and actually it's been like that for all of the videos, all of the gameplay that you're seeing in this whole video here. But that's one tip I can give you, and I'll probably do a little video on exactly how to do that, just a little short video later. But I have set the VRAM to 6 gigs because 3 ain't enough for playing big games like Cyberpunk. But other than that, I have left the settings alone. I am using, by the way, in case you were wondering, this is the default loadout essentially from Lenovo. I have not sideloaded any video drivers. I'm using basically just the last updates provided through Lenovo. So in case you're wondering, hey, did he sideload drivers? Did he do any other stuff? No, I just set the VRAM to 6 gigs, and I'm using all plain old stuff that you would get after you basically finished your initial setup. So, again, the resolution here, 1280 by 800, just to match the other tests. I have taken the Steam Deck preset and I have modified it a little bit, basically just changing it to FSR3 and putting on frame generation and essentially turning off motion blur because I hate motion blur. So other than that, let's see how this goes. We'll do this and then we'll do a little actual gameplay. So looks like we're getting average frame rate of 105, 106 frames per minute. The low is about 87, which is nice for smoothness here. One other thing I should mention is, of course, I am getting my audio through having my capture card hooked up as an extended monitor. That may lower my frame rate slightly. I'll probably do some more testing with the cable off later on. But compared to the Claw, we're getting a little bit higher frame rates here at the same resolution. I did check a bit earlier, it's not on the video, but if we up the resolution to basically 1080p instead of 800p, then we see the frame rate, of course, drop a bit, but it's still around 60-ish. So you can probably crank higher resolution while still getting good frame rate out of the Legion Go that you can't really do on the MSI Claw, at least not with the last round of Intel drivers I tested. So let's take a look at a little bit of gameplay here. And see how that goes in comparison to the benchmark. By the way, we're using, you may have seen it before, the normal performance mode here, so not the highest that this thing can run, because it makes the fan run a lot more than it does now. This is the regular performance mode here. So we can probably squeeze a little bit more frames out of it by using that custom 30-watt mode too. So let's just wander around a bit and see if
Hey everyone, feels great to have you back.
frame rate is relatively
did you all
stable.
hear about that Arasaka aircraft carrier docked in Night City called Kujira, or the Whale? Apparently the Corp figured it wasn't
Enjoying the weather? Average temperatures this month in Night City have remained within human safety levels.
You're just gonna sit there forever, ain't you?
Just wandering around here. Getting a decent enough frame rate here.
So, we going to talk about yesterday?
This is a joke. Fucking joke. Sit in a cop to an airport like that. Retirement. Hell of cops. Got our
situation in Wattsville.
Roger, dispatch. What else is new? We'll be right there.
Suspect's vehicle has been located. Details have been sent.
That's probably enough of driving around. You can see that the frame rate holds up pretty well, and it'll be interesting to see if I run this at higher resolution, how well the performance is running around town doing stuff. But that's something to see for later on. So this has been Cyberpunk on the Legion Go. So we've seen a bit of gameplay, we've looked around the device, so let's talk about kind of summing up initial impressions of the Lenovo Legion Go. So far, I think I've enjoyed my time with this. I really am a fan of having a large screen for particularly PC games, but if you're playing stuff like emulated PlayStation 2 games, of course, the bigger the screen, the better, because those games were designed to be played on large screen or relatively large screen televisions. So they kind of assume that you're going to be looking at stuff on a big screen. Now, just to kind of sum up here, what do I find good about the Lenovo Legion Go? So the 8.8-inch high-resolution screen, really looks good. This is probably the best screen you can find on a mainstream handheld that isn't OLED, at least. So, of course, the Steam Deck screen is significantly lower resolution than this, but this screen certainly looks way better than what you find on the ROG Ally. Probably also, you can count the Ally X in there, and the MSI Claw. So those screens are not nearly as nice looking as this one. There is a caveat, though, which we'll get to it. But, this is a nice screen to play games on. Now, in addition to the nice screen, you get a good amount of power for a handheld right now. I mean, there really isn't much out there, certainly not in the mainstream handhelds, that uses anything really any powerful than a Z1 Extreme. So this has got that. So you've got enough power here to enjoy modern games, and you have plenty of power to emulate older systems if that's what you want to do as well. So at least until the next generation processors start creeping into these systems, like whatever the Legion Go successor is going to be, whatever the Ally X successor is going to be, and so forth, this is a good amount of power, particularly since these are going on sale for pretty good prices these days, particularly if you're willing to pick up open box. So you can get a lot of power for not a lot of money. Now, another thing that I really like about this that should be standard on pretty much all of these devices is we got two USB ports, one on the top, one on the bottom. That gives you at least some connection options that you wouldn't have, say, on at least the original ROG Ally. I don't know if they added one to the Ally X or not. The Claw kind of has the same problem. You have the one USB port for everything. So this port is, I believe it's Thunderbolt, so it should be capable of adding an external GPU, although I'm probably not doing that because it kind of defeats the purpose of having a handheld if you have to attach it to a GPU. But that is an option if you choose to use it. Now, I really do actually like the kickstand. It's actually substantial, unlike the one on something like the Nintendo Switch, where it just falls over if you look at it funny. But if you want to do media, now I have a cord plugged in here right now, but if you want to do media, it certainly would allow you to stand the system up. I think I put it to sleep by hitting the button. But you get the idea. It will let you stand the system up without too much difficulty. You can adjust it. It is pretty solid, kind of like the one on one of my Lenovo laptops. I have a ThinkPad X1 tablet that has a very similar kickstand. But kickstand's really useful if you want to use this for watching media, and with the screen the size that it has, why not just prop it up and throw on a movie or YouTube video or what have you. So kickstand is a nice welcome feature. I actually wish a few more of these handhelds had that. Also, this is a minor thing, but it is good for me at least. Comes with a case. So it's like, oh, you get this thing sort of like the Steam Deck. But a lot of the other handhelds are like, well, we're going to cheap out and not provide at least a basic case for you to use. Well, Lenovo actually was thoughtful and included a case, fairly decent case, and even has a hole here so you can charge it while it's in the case. So, good job, Lenovo, on including the case. Now, there are some things that aren't so good about the Legion Go. The biggest thing to me, I think, I'm a kind of sucker for sound quality. The speakers are frankly just lousy. These are probably, I wouldn't say probably, these are definitely the worst speakers that you can find on a mainstream handheld. Certainly worse than what you get in the Ally, certainly worse than what you get in the Steam Deck, and very certainly worse than what you get in the MSI Claw, which actually has pretty darn good speakers for a handheld. You can see the speakers if I move the handheld a bit here and here. Part of the problem is they're firing the wrong direction, so you really don't get kind of the depth of sound from either of them firing front or bottom. But the other issue is, that aside, they still don't sound that good. And Lenovo sets up the equalizer. I don't know if they did this deliberately or accidentally, but the default equalizer settings that come on the Go just make the speakers sound even worse than they actually are. And basically the solution to that, at least, is to go into the audio mixer and disable the equalizer preset that they set that makes the speakers sound god-awful. So you do that, and speakers are at least passable, but they're not good. So this is, in fact, the thing I like least about the Legion Go is the speakers need some work. Now, in addition, you have the typical software jank of running a handheld on Windows. The experience is nowhere near as console-like on a Legion Go as it is on something like a Steam Deck, which is probably the kind of premier PC handheld experience. Now, it's not the most powerful of the PC handhelds, but it definitely has a lot of stuff figured out that you're not getting on the Windows handhelds. Stuff just works as long as the game's compatible with the Steam Deck. So Legion Space also, I've mentioned earlier in the video that, oh yeah, it comes up to the store page by default. You can't change that. In terms of comparing to the other interfaces you can get on the other popular PC handhelds, I'd say the Ally Armory Crate definitely has this beat in terms of what you can do with it and just in general how the interface looks. The Claw's interface has some problems, that Center M, whatever they call it. And, maybe this is a little better than what you find on the Claw. And certainly the interface here, the Legion Space, is not nearly as polished as what you find on the Steam Deck. But you don't ever have to use it. If you're just installing your software on Steam, you can just put icons on the desktop and tap on those and play your games. You don't even have to bother with Legion Space very much unless you just want to update your controller firmware and things like that. Really, I think most of the stuff I do with Legion Space will just be done through the quick menu, so I probably won't be using the main interface of it all that much. But it could use some work. I understand it's in better shape now than it was when the Go first released, but it's still not wonderful. Now, if you're running at lower frame rates, this may be important to you. There's no variable refresh rate. I hear that's due to the kind of screen that was used on this device. It looks really good, but it is, as far as I can tell, a tablet screen. And I think what I read was it was a portrait screen installed in landscape mode, so for whatever reason it can't do VRR. Well, but so the screen refresh rate options are a little bit limited. There's basically like high and low, and that's pretty much it. But as long as you're running at a decent frame rate, it's probably not that big of an issue. And so far, I really haven't found it to be that much of a problem, but it is something to be aware of, that the other handhelds can do some tricks to make lower frame rates look a little bit smoother, and that's probably not something you can do as easily on the go. And of course, kind of the elephant in the room, literally, is, at least not necessarily, even in physical size, but it's not too much bigger than the Steam Deck. But in terms of mass, I weighed it on my scale, and I got 1.9 pounds for the Legion Go, which compared to the other ones I've got, the MSI Claw I thought was pretty heavy, and it was only 1.5 pounds. And the Steam Deck, the Deck OLED at least, the one I have, is actually the lightest of these three. So if you think the Deck OLED is too heavy for you, then the Legion Go is probably more of that. Now, weight usually doesn't bother me that much, but I figured, well, if you're worried about weight, well, the Legion Go is probably not for you if you really mind a heavy handheld. So, just to kind of sum up then, I've enjoyed my time so far with the Legion Go, and I think primarily the reason for that is the gigantic screen. There's a couple of things that I haven't touched on here. I have not messed with the detachable controllers because this video is probably already too long, and I want to get a chance to actually play with those the way they're intended before saying much about them. I'm not the world's biggest fan of detachable controllers, but at least these seem to be attached pretty well. And this thing with being able to use this one as a mouse sounds interesting, but I will probably have to play with that before I decide whether I actually like it or not. Although having the trackpad tends to be handy, kind of like the Steam Deck, just one of them, particularly for getting around in Windows. But so there's some things I haven't really played around with much yet. But so far, well, at least based on initial impressions, would I recommend it? If you're looking for a big screen experience on a handheld and you're able to get the sale price, sure. Yeah. I've enjoyed mine so far, and you'll probably see some more gameplay videos pop up as I put some more games on here. But I would definitely say the Go is a contender here. There's some things I haven't tested, like how good's the battery life relative to the competition. But for the most part, when I play with these things, I play somewhat near a plug anyway. So we'll get to battery life, but don't have any data for you there just yet. So, hope you enjoyed the video. And if you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like. Helps people find my stuff easier. If you want to see more gaming content, particularly with handhelds, subscribe to the channel. And any questions or comments, comment section's always open. And I hope to see you next video.